Hello and welcome to North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. It has been a while.
Yeah, since Brothers War dropped, this is the longest break you get between sets now.
Ugh.
The 4.5 minutes between the late fall set and the winter set.
Good Lord. I'm Serge. Joining me today, we have a Nelly.
Hi, I'm here.
And a Wheeler.
Thank you for having me. All will be one.
A reminder that North 100 is brought to you by you with your support of the Patreon over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. And as Wheeler mentioned, all will be one. That is the set review that we are covering today. Is this the Phyrexian hand sign? Oh, we touched just a little there. I like it. Now, there's not a ton of cards that we're terribly excited to talk about, but if we only talk about the, what did Wheeler say, 5 cards that he's actually hyped for in the set, I think you'd be a little bit disappointed. So this is only going to be a 2-parter this time. I think there's 56 cards in total?
Yes.
Maybe only 52.
52?
52?
Yeah, 52.
Yeah, not a lot. And I think that's okay. Not every set needs to be cracked,
Not
right?
a bad thing.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing.
So today we're going to be covering white, black, blue, red, and lands. And then part 2 will be covering the rest, which will be green, gold, and artifacts.
Can I make a suggestion?
By all means, please.
Instead of white, black, blue, red lands, can we cover white, blue, black, red lands?
Did I Wooburg in the wrong order?
That's a good button. We should write that down.
Nice.
You're Wooburging wrong.
Your Wooburging wrong is very good. Well, without any further ado, why don't we get on into it with our first card. Wheeler, start us off.
Crawling Chorus. A single white for a 1/1 Phyrexian horror with Toxic 1. So players dealt combat damage by this creature also get N poison counters. In this case, 1. When Crawling Chorus dies, you create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. Does this go in Aristocrats?
That is the question for sure.
No.
But it's 2 bodies.
I know, but one of those
For
bodies...
only 1 mana.
I know, but one of those bodies can't block, which is a huge deal for Aristocrats, is that for all the very powerful creatures in Highlander that are attacking you, they can be blocked a lot of the time. Like Alelia, terrifying, gets to be like a 5/5 immediately. Just throw a Tukatung Thallid in front of it, and then do it again. This only lets you do that once, which the Toxic is kind of a thing. Not really a thing, but we'll get into that. But if you're playing 1-mana 1/1s that make more 1/1s, make sure that they all block.
You can do better than this?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, not out to any potential toxic decks playing white or infect or poison decks, however it goes. If you're looking for bodies, this one is a fine rate for a 1/1 that leaves a second toxic body. I don't know that deck exists yet or will after the set drops, though. And certainly, yeah, if you're playing not toxic like Aristocrats normally would, this is not Doomed Traveler.
All right, let's move on. Nelly, you're up.
Elish Norn, Mother of Machines. 4 and a white for a legendary Phyrexian Praetor. A 4/7 Vigilance with, if a permanent entering the battlefield caused a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability
way
triggers
slower,
additional
dude.
time.
Way slower.
Also, permanents entering the battlefield don't
A little
cause
faster.
abilities of permanents your opponents control to trigger. Yeah, so this is like a Pan-Harmonicon, but in the style of the Phyrexian Praetors that we've been seeing. You get... Yeah, I had to betray you. You get the reverse of the Pan-Harmonicon for your opponent. So you get a good thing of something, and your opponent gets the bad thing of something. And this card, I would try it in Bant Blink. I don't immediately think it's going to be a powerhouse in the format. Is it crazy? Is having a Pan-Harmonicon creature worth 5 mana?
Give me a K.
K.
Give me an A.
A.
Give me a Rackus.
Rackus.
What does that spell?
No idea.
Caracas.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and then that's the downside. It's legendary,
Oh,
so
you're
it just gets
agreeing
bounced all the
with
time.
me that this isn't good. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think
For
this is
most
good.
cards.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, obviously it's a powerful effect, and it's a huge butt, and that's kind of neat. And like 5 isn't uncastable in our format, but like...
Now it's 1 less than 6, so maybe there's going to be some combos with our friend, the meat and eggs we eat.
Oh, Hulk?
Right, like maybe there's going to be a Hulk deck with it. I'm not saying there is one right
Yeah,
now,
I just
but
like-
because it's 5 mana.
I don't think a combo deck needs this, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, you were onto something with the Bant Blink. I think that's really neat.
Yeah, it's fun, but probably you cut it from the tournament version.
To throw a bone to the fans of Panharmomicon, which is I think a very
That's a good nickname. Yeah.
Oh no.
I could see this being played in the Mardu or Esper initiative decks, like
Okay.
the
Oh, yeah.
jamming every initiative card, because those decks are already signing up to just be way greedier than they should be, and like, yeah, like this can help you against some of the ways that opponents will, might deal with this.
Are you cutting like Hama Pashar for this?
No, because that's also in the category like that.
That card's so greedy. So Hama Pashar, we should bring that up because not everyone's probably familiar. It's from the D&D set. It's like a 3-mana 3/3.
2/3.
2/3.
3-mana 2/3, and dungeon abilities trigger twice.
Yes.
So it's like this extremely niche Panharmonicon, only if you already have the initiative, right? But it's only 3 mana instead of 5.
Yeah, but this also works with, because that deck plays cards beyond the initiative, like Baleful Strixes,
Yeah.
Solitudes,
Yeah.
Griefs, all that kind of thing. I'm not saying that's the correct play to make, but those decks do have a little bit of wiggle room, and if that archetype becomes more popular, then this could be a reasonable tech for the mirror.
Yeah.
What do you think of this as a hate bear in like a medium white or like a bigger, slightly slower version of Death and Taxes, where it's like 5 mana, pretty impressive clock, honestly, if what you're doing is playing some sort of control, and you just stop your opponent from getting into the initiative?
I'd play this in big white.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm saying is that I would either play this if, like, I want to be greedier in tournament wedding decks, or I would play this in decks that have no chance in hell of winning a tournament, which is fine. That's great.
Yeah.
It's weird that 5 is so much more than 4, because like we let a lot of 4-drop, not a lot, but like the total number of cards like through the years, whatever, we let a lot of 4-drops into our decks in this format, and yet 5 is like that's now you've left the stratosphere and you're orbiting playability,
Yeah.
right?
All right, next up, we've got the Eternal Wanderer. I mean, if 5 is a lot, how about 6 mana for a
It's a lot
Planeswalker?
of mana.
6 mana, 5 loyalty for 4 white. Static ability, no more than one creature can attack the Eternal Wanderer each combat. +1 ability, exile up to one target artifact or creature. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of that player's next end step. 0 ability, create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with double strike. Pretty relevant, instead of just the vigilance, I believe, of its 4 mana younger self. And -4, for each player, choose a creature that player controls. Each player sacrifices all creatures they control not chosen this way. This is a lot of mana for a Planeswalker. I'm of the opinion, probably similar to Elesh Norn that we were just talking about, which is if you have a blink deck and you're trying to be really cute and really big, you can play it. But otherwise, I don't love it. Also, its 0 ability does an okay job of protecting it, which is an important thing that Planeswalker needs to do. Like, that's a very good blocker and attacker, but I don't really see it synergizing terribly well with its plus ability, which wants to abuse ETBs either on your creatures or other things. And like, its weird kind of cute cataclysm effect on the bottom, I'm pretty medium on too. So like 3 medium abilities stapled to 6 loyalty is a lot. I saw some heads nodding. Nobody's going to contradict me on that one.
No,
Yeah.
you're not wrong.
All right, then let's move on. Wheeler.
Kemba. Caw-caw. Enduring. 1 and a white for a 2/2 legendary creature, Cat Cleric. Whenever Kemba, Enduring, or another cat enters the battlefield under your control, attach up to 1 target equipment you control to that creature. Equipped creatures you control get +1/+1, and then pay 3 white to create a 2/2 white cat creature token. I believe we talked about this in the last set of the like mono white or white blue or white red or Jeskai, or and then just keep going. Like Cauldra Complete Hammer Time style deck that gets to take advantage of the hot new tech that is running Moxen, I guess. I think Kemba slides into that archetype pretty well. Not as much as some of the other cards that can kind of be more widespread of like, Urza or Stoneforge being like, hey, we do a thing with artifact. Also, we're broken. But it's that redundancy of like the core outfitter, which is a 2-mana 2/2 ETB equipment is now equipped to target. So this either has to put it on itself or on the token it generates, but redundancy is important. It's easy to cast. You can Caracas this to rebuy it if you really want to, which is kind of funny. And then that's a deck again where like your curve is relatively low, but you do play mana accelerants in the form of, Soul Mana, Ancient Tombs, Tolarian Academy, Mox, and all that jazz. And so actually getting to the 5 to start pumping out CAD tokens isn't that unrealistic. And in fact, I think is just like a thing that makes this card a pretty reasonable late game, mid game draw.
I like this even in just aggressive low to the ground, like white, black, white, red equipment decks.
Yeah.
Like ignoring the first line, it seems like you were suggesting you can go big on like Kemba Complete or expensive equipment. But even just the 2 other abilities, equip creatures get +1/+1 and make cat if as a mana sink, means I think this is a shoe-in just for any deck that wants to play equipment. And I probably play too much equipment in my equipment decks.
Yeah, I mean, this thing, even equipping, like, the Cauldron Complete Batterskull Dream is not as... I mean, it's a realistic dream. It's not even a dream. It's just a thing that deck does. But even, like, what you're saying, like this putting a Shadow Spear on
That's what I'm going to say. Like, it's so funny that you're talking about these really expensive equipments, which in my mind are almost unplayable now, and maybe I should reevaluate that because of the effects.
Yeah, you need to get greedier.
Because on the other hand, most of the equipment that I'm playing these days, you've been ruthless with me. You're not even saving that much mana because I'm only playing Shadow Spear, Jite, and it's great to save a couple of mana because that does accelerate you. And then suddenly your turn of like play the equipment on 2, play this on 3, it's already equipped for free, right? You're like, oh.
Or vialing this out.
Yeah. Oh my
spend
God.
your turn to play equipment.
Turn 1 Vial, turn 2 cast your Jite. Oh. Sorry, you've made me very excited.
Yeah, I mean, the best equipment in the game already attaches for 0, and when you unattach it from one of your creatures,
Oh, I know where this
you
is
have to
going.
sacrifice that creature. So it just seems like a non-boat.
You really think Shuko is the best equipment in the game?
I mean, as far as equipment's and tournament winning lists, it might be up there.
It's winning a lot of legacy.
Oh no! All right,
Yeah. No, the cat looks good though. I think Kemba, good card in a bad deck, absolutely.
Let's move on. What do you got, Nelly?
Ossification. It's pacifism, right? Or no, it's Chain to the Rocks. Right?
Chain to the Rocks.
Right.
Yeah.
There's also a really good pacifism in this set. Okay, so 1 and a white for enchantment aura, enchant basic land you control. It has to be a basic. When ossification enters the battlefield, exile target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls until ossification leaves the battlefield. So this is like, I mean, it's the mana cost of pacifism, but you get Journey to Nowhere, accepting and target a planeswalker, but in the style of Chain. It's a really interesting. This is like white removal soup.
I really like that you said it's the mana value of pacifism and then mentioned Journey to Nowhere, a card that has the same mana cost.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot. It's been so long since we've had like exile removal for 2 kind of in limit. Like this is an uncommon. So, I don't know. To me, it wouldn't be like a removal spell I'd be going to grab, but I don't play a lot of white mid-range. So if anyone is planning to play this card in their deck, I have a tough time even playing the second 1 white mana removal spell sometimes.
I could see Wait, no, we're not turning this into a Path to Exile discussion.
Okay, that's
not
fine.
happening here.
We don't have to talk about it.
Great, we don't have to talk about it. Enchantress, the green-white straightforward Enchantress. I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
That
Or
deck
even-
loves this card. Okay.
Yeah, Sanctum Stompy, anything
Yeah.
that's going to synergize off of playing
Yeah.
something like that. And the fact that it's on a basic is both an upside and a downside because it means like Chain to the Rock, they could wasteland your land because your mountain is possibly going to be a non-basic. So it's actually pretty safe, which is neat.
I could even see like a blue-white deck built by someone that has back pain, running this in like an Enlightened Tutor package. Like Enlightened Tutor, just having the ability to like Enlightened Tutor for back to basics, but also Enlightened Tutor for spot removal, and you don't really want to play Oblivion Ring anymore, and you don't have the colors to play Leyline Binding. So, yeah.
Cool. All right, next up, we've got Skrelv.
Skrelv.
This is one of the 5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Skrelv Defector Might. This is 1 mana, 1/1 legendary artifact creature token Phyrexian Might. It's got Toxic 1, can't block, and Phyrexian and 1 and tap. Sorry. So Phyrexian mana can either be paid with 2 life or white mana. Tap, choose a color. Another target creature you control gains Toxic 1 and Hexproof from that color until end of turn, and it can't be blocked by creatures of that color this turn. There's a lot of words on this card. And at the lowest possible level, we have another Mother of Runes, which is kind of cool. Actually, very cool. Like, very, very cool. This is a very powerful effect. It's a little bit more expensive, and it's not as flexible and powerful just from a Mum effect, but we have other things that are really cool and good here, too, including Toxic 1 and the ability to give Toxic 1 to other creatures you control. Also, it's an artifact. There's a lot of very powerful things that are going for this card. Sometimes the fact that it's legendary can be a downside, but now we have a Mother of Runes that we can protect with Karakas ourselves. Because the white decks would typically play it to be disruptive to your opponent, but there's also the upside of being able to protect your own stuff. Pardon me. I've talked about a lot of upsides. You've mentioned that this is one of the 5 cards that Wheeler's probably naming. Like, let's open up the discussion a little bit more here.
Yeah, I just think like moms isn't something before this card we really had like a category of. They just gave us the second one in Modern Horizons 2, and this is the third one, right? Am I
That was
forgetting
first Modern Horizons.
Oh, was it first Modern
Yeah, we've had
Horizons?
two,
Okay.
we've
And
had
by-
two
but it
months
was
for a couple
one
of years
for the
And I
now.
have
longest
some
time.
bad news for you if you think they just gave that to us.
How old is Mother 2?
4
Eight
years old.
Oh, that's
Speaking of
only 4.
Speaking of
so.
back pain, yeah. The breadth of time between Mother of Runes and Giver of Runes was a lot of time, kids. I know none of you played Magic back then, but yeah, this isn't Frosted Tips up here. Anyways, I think Skrelv is a very good card. Anything that resembles the Mom ability, you do have to pay mana, but you could pay life instead. That's a big deal. I'll let Wheeler have some thoughts on it too, but I do want to say, like, just talking about Karakas and the point you made, I want to add that just in general, you know, the downside of your legend being a legend, because everyone else is going to have Karakas, goes up the higher the mana cost of your legend goes up, right? So at 1 and 2, not so bad.
Not to mention Death and Taxes is a deck that really quit being a coward. Play your Brimaz, play your Adeline. They have Karakas. You have Waste Strip, like Rishi P, Ghost Quarter. You know, you've got the works. There are genuine downsides for this card beyond that, though. Like, the can't block is relevant.
Yep.
People, they hold on to mums way too long. Sometimes you got to block, especially if it means you're going to win the race. And this not being able to block is always a little awkward, but, you know, whatever. Small downside. And then being an artifact just opens it up to being more vulnerable if we're looking at it through the lens of D&T.
Oh, yeah, this dies to everything.
Yeah. If we
You
open
look
it,
at Skrelv and it dies. Yeah.
if we open it up to like artifact aggro kind of lists too, then I think you can spin the artifact part of it into an upside. But
Metalcraft,
but those lists they play so much garbage
garbage.
already.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like, that list is still playing Phyrexian. What's the 3-1 with first strike?
Porcelain Legionnaire?
Porcelain Legionnaire is still in that list, right? All right. Shall we move on to the next card, Wheeler?
But you're thinking this plays in D&T.
Yeah,
right? I just wanted to get
I'd give it a shot.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Next up.
Skrelv's Hive. For 1 and a white, it's an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. And then it has Corrupted, which is an ability word that basically says as long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures you control with Toxic have lifelink. This makes an artifact creature every single turn, and it only costs 2 mana. And I think I'm okay with that. I famously hate Bitter Blossoms.
Like, you don't like playing them?
Oh, I just think they're not good in Canadian Highlander. Except for Aristocrats playing actual factual Bitter Blossom. But that is like it. But this one makes artifact creatures. And artifacts, I know we just talked about how being an artifact is a downside, but ignore us. Artifacts make everything better, especially when you get to poop them out repeatedly. That's pretty cool and good. I'd be interested in trying this out in some of the artifact aggro / artifact mid-range decks. Like, I want to try this out in a welder deck too. Just being able to Like those decks thrive on being annoying, and this card is very annoying. Like this can get out of hand pretty quickly. But also, as much as I hate Bitter Blossoms, I'm also not immune to getting convinced that a new Bitter Blossom could be good. So I might be wrong. on
Is this
that.
our first white Bitter Blossom? Certainly for this mana, making a 1/1 every turn. I don't
Yes,
think we've
yeah,
ever
yeah.
seen.
Yeah,
one
definitely
white.
it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
classically they're black. I don't know if you necessarily count like the 5 mana ones that you get in like Boros and stuff. Those aren't Bitter Blossoms. The ones that
Yeah.
exponentially grow, that's not a Bitter Blossom.
There's really just 3, right? Like there's the War of the Spark Bitter Blossom. There's
Which
Bitter
is
Blossom
the
and this.
army. Well,
Yeah,
that
in
that
mass.
Bitter Blossom's extra awkward because it's in a mass.
Yeah.
So it doesn't give you multiple bodies. One downside to this specifically for Bitter Blossom is one of the upsides of it is that they can be defensive while you try to stabilize. Like Bitter Blossom will keep you alive forever. And while you are getting artifacts and those are good, once again, the Mites not being able to block is a tremendous downside.
Yeah, I want to agree. And I think that's an important point when you're deck building or what you're planning to do with this card, because one of the coolest things about Bitter Blossom, Serge just said, we refer to them as Force Field sometime, which is a really old card from like Alpha Beta. Where
Reduce
you,
the damage to 1.
yeah, you
Yeah.
pay a mana, and then the oncoming damage from any one source is only 1. And that's what you can do with a Bitter Blossom, but unfortunately not with Skrull's Hive. But I also agree with Wheeler that artifacts are great.
All right, let's move on. Wheeler. Not Wheeler, pardon me, Nelly.
Swooping Lookout. Oh, why don't you take this one, Serge?
Oh, is it my first ever spoiler card? I couldn't remember the word for a second there.
Hey, free preview card on Serge's
Yeah,
channel.
I got a preview card, which was very cool and very flattering. And then I found out it was a Hovermere.
Yep.
And I realized everyone was just laughing at me. And I was like, oh, wait, hold on. So Swooping Lookout is a 1-mana, 1/2 artifact creature Phyrexian construct, and it has flying and vigilance. So it is a strictly better Hovermere, which is kind of cool. It's gone from 2 generic mana to a single white mana. And unfortunately, I think it might still not be very playable. It might go into Flying Friends, though. I don't know if that deck plays white, but it is. I mean, I remember you saying you would take any 1-mana flying creature, and
Suntail Hawk has won more Highlander events than Grafted War Gear. I'd be willing to bet that.
It's Grafted Warriors won at least one.
Yeah, and I've won at least 4 with Suntail Hawk.
Oh, really? All right.
And there's literally
Right.
dozens of them.
yeah. All right, so let's talk about if you wanted to put this in any decks, where they'd go. Specifically, the very low to the ground artifact creature deck that cares about the artifact count but doesn't care about mana, which is kind of clunky. I don't love those, but I know that it's real. And decks that are trying to play as many cheap flyers as possible. I think that is the only home. It does a pretty good job of carrying equipment, but that's not what those decks really care about. They're just looking for density of low threats, and that's what the Swooping Lookout is.
If you did put a Grafted Warrior on this thing,
It would
boom, you
slap
build
them.
your own
It
Third
would.
Angel. Yeah. Look at that.
All right.
Great. Now their Viridian Shaman isn't just going to get them a 2-for-1. It's going to get them a 3-for-1.
Turn 1. Mishra's Workshop, Hovermere. Turn 2, Grafted Warrior.
Yeah.
Take 4, idiot.
I've done that before.
I bet you have.
I probably lost that game too.
It was worth it.
All right, let's move on, but back to Nelly.
Sure, I'll take the next one. We're into blue cards now with Experimental Augury. An instant for 1 generic and a blue. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. That sounds familiar. Isn't there a sort of, kind of, not really playable card named Anticipate that does that? But wait, there's more. This one also proliferates. Yikes. That is extremely cheap for proliferate.
Sort of not.
Do you,
sort
do
of
you like
kind
Anticipate? I don't know.
of.
I feel
in
like
some
Impulse is okay.
in some storm builds, if I'm not on Breach Storm, I don't mind it.
Okay.
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 Yeah, I was gonna say, you calling Anticipate not like playable. I was just thinking like you need to start playing storm decks that aren't playing Bubbling Muck. Like you need to.
All right.
Yeah, maybe I should. Actually.
Are you
That's one
excited about
idea.
Proliferate? Because you're obviously not excited about Anticipate. Wheeler, look at that smile.
I just think giving Proliferate to an Anticipate is pretty messed up.
Yeah,
Like,
you know. So the decks that do play Anticipate
yeah.
also usually play Pentad Prism,
Hmm.
Jeweled Amulet.
Gemstone
Which-
Caverns.
Yeah,
Wait,
or
is Gem-
Gemstone Mine.
I was going to say,
That's what I mean.
Gemstone Mine can't still be seen play, can it?
In Storm decks, it does.
Really?
Well, you never really have to sack it because your opponent's dead.
They're dead or you are, yeah.
Yeah,
How
You're
many
never
turns of
tapping it
magic
3
do you
times.
need?
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's an excellent segue on just like, we can briefly touch on proliferate just for a second here. So, the dream, if you play Magic at Broad, is, tick up your planeswalkers or put an additional +1/+1 counter on all of your creatures, or an additional -1/-1 counter or poison counter on your opponent. And I'm fairly certain that we're not really doing that ever in our format.
Here's the thing. Other than this card, name a proliferate card that sees play in Canada.
I think that's the other part,
If you
right?
say Tezzeret's Gambit, I'm leaving.
Man,
Why?
Okay.
Everyone was so stoked for a few months to be like, yeah, Mono Red can play Tezzeret's Gambit.
You're like divination.
Yeah, they're like, my green deck can draw cards finally. That's just to let you know how much Magic has changed in 2011.
Since original Phyrexia,
yeah,
right?
First Phyrexia came out. It was like, green gets card draw. It's like, oh,
well,
God.
we remember when we used to
I
play.
could take that back.
What was the 2-mana equipment? There's a 2-mana artifact. Enters play. Target creature gets -1/-1.
Clasp.
Contagion Clasp. I miss when we used to play Contagion Clasp in our format.
You can still play it in the Hubris cannon.
Oh, nice.
I don't know what that means, and I'm scared.
Mono brown Lux cannon charge counters.
I mean, okay, that actually does sound kind of sweet.
Well, shouldn't you just cut the class for this new one in the
Shut
blue
up,
thing?
dude, shut up. No, it's an artifact. You can play it off base.
Yeah.
All right.
So take us home real quick.
This is the new best card I've ever seen with Proliferate on it. So maybe the incidental Proliferate will make it into some Canadian Highlander decks, and we're going to find out all the cool corner cases for why Proliferate is good.
Yeah, maybe like Bug +1/+1 or something
The
like that.
the comment section is going to be filled with people that play like Jund counters, and they're like,
Oh, yeah.
Pollen Bright Druid, Evolution Sage, and other bad
Please,
cards
yeah.
they should cut for Ragavan.
All right, so here's what we're going to do for the order. We're going to go to Wheeler,
Uh-huh.
and then we're going to go back to Nelly, and the order will have fixed itself.
All right.
So next up, Wheeler.
Jace, the Perfected Mind. 2 blue and then a Phyrexian blue for a 5 loyalty planeswalker that is completed. For a reminder, completed means that the Phyrexian blue can be paid with either blue mana or 2 life, and if the life was paid this way, the planeswalker enters with 2 fewer loyalty counters. So either 2 and 2 blue for 5 loyalty, or 2 a blue and 2 life for 3 loyalty. +1. Until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -3/-0. -2. Target player mills 3 cards. Then if a graveyard has 20 or more cards in it, you draw 3 cards. Otherwise, you draw 1 card. And then -X. Target player mills 3 times X cards.
I never actually read this before.
So that first ability is genuinely not bad.
Yeah.
Like, everybody that's played Jace Vryn's Prodigy knows how much -2/-0 just ruins combat. And -3/-0 is pretty strong. So I don't think this card's good. I want to get that right out of the way.
Out of the way. You're taking
Same.
Okay.
Same. Even though it's a 3-mana planeswalker.
Did you know you can play Jace Bellerin?
What? No, okay. We're also... Are you sure you haven't been in like a coma for 10 years?
Yeah, Nelly, wake up. It's 2023. Yeah. It's not 2017 anymore.
You can draw a time walk with Jace Bellerin.
So, but the only reason I want to bring this one up is because if we don't talk about all the planeswalkers, the comments will mention it.
Yeah.
But also there's precedence. So there's a Esper. It's not quite Palcatraz, but it's kind of like the prototype for that. Like an Esper planeswalker control Staxy kind of deck that popped up a bit around War of the Spark and afterwards that played Dovin Hand of Control, I think is its name.
Hate Bear Dovin?
Yeah, it's like a 3-mana uncommon. It's 3 mana, 2 and then hybrid blue-white Dovin. 5 loyalty that increases the cost of instants, artifacts, and sorceries of your opponents. And then you can -1 to say until your next turn, prevent all damage that would be dealt to and dealt by target permanent and opponent controls. So I'm not going to compare these two cards directly, but you get the sense of this is the kind of planeswalker they're playing, where really they'll take any 3-mana planeswalker that stops an opponent from taking game actions.
Yeah,
or from cards doing
You're developing your board with multiple Maze of Iths, basically, right?
Yeah. Yes, yeah. And so there's a deck that wants these kind of cards that will probably play this card, and they were playing triple Mox +1 before it was popular. So maybe it's time to revisit that version of that deck as well, especially because the format's so much more board-based. You're less likely to get mucked by playing like, here's my turn 1 Jace the Perfected Mind, and then your opponent just storms off. Like, that can still happen, but, you know.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, then next up, Nelly.
Mercurial Spelldancer. 1 and a blue for a Phyrexian Rogue 2/1. With Mercurial Spelldancer can't be blocked. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter on Mercurial Spelldancer. And Mercurial Spelldancer deals whenever this deals combat damage to a player, you may remove 2 oil counters from it. If you do, when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Now, if this card's not good, I don't want to be right. Like, it's very up my alley. And what do you think? What do you think?
I like it. Before Wheeler dunks on us, I like it. Wheeler.
Boys, it's closer to Dreadhorde Arcanist than it is to crap.
Yeah, no, it reminds... it's very like the Bob from Kaladesh, whose name I forget. It's like with the energy counters, and you can take an energy counter off to draw.
Oh, you're from Kaladesh, you know, Bob? Glint Sleeve Siphoner?
Thank you. It's got a very Glint Sleeve Siphoner kind of vibe on it, except that you get the counters every time you cast a non-creature spell, including when you cast the non-creature spell right after you remove 2 oil counters from it. So, like, this thing just doubling up your spells every turn seems pretty likely.
The important thing there is thinking about the deck, because obviously it's not great in a tempo deck, because like doubling your counters doesn't do much. Maybe doubling your removals a little bit awkward. So I'm thinking of it in... I've cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, finish. Yeah.
I like it in like a bug shell, where you're trying to play proactive sorceries or something like that, like doubling a hand attack, doubling a ramp spell or some type of utility spell like that, more so than trying to hold it back. I mean, I'm 50-50 on this, maybe in Blue Moon, like doubling up a removal spell or like a ponder or something like that. But I like if it's more proactive rather than reactive, I think the value of this card goes up way more.
Ninjas.
Can't be blocked.
Yeah. The blue-black ninjas are like the Sultai ninjas list. Yeah.
The thing is, this needs to connect in order to get its ability, but I guess you're happy whether you're returning to your hand or whether you're not returning.
I mean, if you
to
swap
your hand,
this for Fallen Shinobi, I don't care how many oil counters you have,
you
it's
lose.
worth, right?
I mentioned that. I mean, Flying Men is an auto include, or this card's an auto include in Flying Men. But
Sure.
I mentioned Ninjas as like a deck where it's like that deck will also just play and it's things that are evasive, and this checks that box. But also sometimes they don't have a ninja, but they do have hand attack and cantrips.
Yeah.
So
I honestly think it could be fine in like the Izzet tempo control sort of medium deck with like, the classic counterburn stuff, or maybe in the Izzet Blitz deck. The thing about the Izzet Blitz deck is that like being a creature in that deck, there's a very hard waiting list. But I just think doubling up your lightning bolts is fantastic. You can do that. I'll be trying it.
All right, next up is me.
Oh, wait, I'm going to put it in turns, too. Go ahead.
Oh, Time Walk is very proactive, but yeah. All right, next up. Minor Misstep is a 1-mana instant. Counter target spell with mana value 1 or less. I like this card in exactly one style of deck. Hard combo. And Wheeler's making a face at me. There is a history... I don't think this is a very good counter spell, just to be thinking. There's a history of playing only hard counters to counter the counters that the control decks are going to play against you. And the example I want to give to this is there's like a 1-mana blue instant counter target instant spell.
Dispel.
And I remember seeing winning tournament lists that would play Force, Pact of Negation, and Dispel. And the idea is you want to hit your combo piece and you want to win the coming up counter war. And having this hit Force, and Pact as a way to sort of fight against it, I think it has a home.
This doesn't hit Force.
So it's not the mana spent to cast it.
Okay,
there is another counterspell like that.
Yeah.
But this one actually checks the top right.
No. This is bad.
May I?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is. I really wanted to swear right there.
Yeah.
This is really bad.
This is really bad.
Really
Just play
bad.
Mental Misstep.
Yeah, I wanted to use this as a very brief moment. And gentlemen, if you would mind helping me on this. So how much mana does Mental Misstep usually cost?
0.
And what does it counter?
Everything.
A 1 drop, right?
Mana Elves and
How much
Lightning
mana
Bolts
does Spell Snare cost?
cost? 1.
What does it counter?
Counters
Everything
the 2
else.
drop.
2s. What does counter spell
Snare. Sorry, I was
cost?
saying Spell Pierce.
Costs 2.
Cost 2. What does it counter?
Everything.
So you're noticing a trend where your counter spell, the cost for your counter spell is going to be lower than what you are countering
Yep.
most of the time.
Yep.
That's why counter spells are good.
Yeah, you want to be up resources, right? You want to trade a card, but also resources.
You are
right?
sacrificing like the chance that you don't get to take a game action for the opportunity of trading up.
Right. You can never establish a mana advantage with this card.
And that's fine in certain circumstances, but like that's where Mental Misstep just comes in to be like, hey, here's a free spell that deals with swords or path or whatever.
And interestingly enough, Mental Misstep has seen a lot more play recently. Like a lot more play recently. I've been putting it in like all my blue decks.
I mean, if they Ragavan on the play,
Yeah. Yeah. You got to kill that monkey.
yeah.
You know? All right. Minor misstep, bad. Ignore everything I said. We'll just cut it in post. It's fine.
Okay. We can do that, right?
Thanks, Heather.
Jordan, but yeah.
Thanks, Jordan. Yeah.
All right, Wheeler, you're up.
Transplant Theorist. 3 and a blue for a 2/4 artifact creature, Phyrexia and Artificer. Whenever Transplant Theorist or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. And then pay 2 generic, put target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. I'm glad I got this card
I was going to
because this
say,
is
I have
my
nothing to
kind
say
of
about
crap.
You're going to do something degenerate with this, aren't you?
I saw the 4 mana 2/4 and I'm like, what's going on? And then I read the first paragraph and there it is.
So there's a card called Riddlesmith, which is from from Scars of Mirrodin.
Scars block, yeah.
1 and a blue for a 2/1. Whenever an artifact ETBs,
You have to pay one.
no, this one's free.
Riddlesmith
Riddlesmith is free? Is it just the first one? Because I was thinking
Most of that
Riddlesmith.
cycle you have to pay one.
And Riddlesmith is...
Sorry, this is cast. I wanted to clarify.
Okay,
But yeah,
so
go ahead.
Tell me about Riddlesmith, because
So-
I love this, but yeah.
Yeah, whenever you cast an artifact spell, you may draw a card, and if you do, discard a card. So there are some combos that you can set up with this card, and there are some engines you can set up with this card. And this archetype has popped up in Vintage and in Legacy before. One of them uses a card called Oval Chase Daredevil, which is whenever it's like a 4 mana 4/2 in black that says whenever an artifact ETBs, if it's in your graveyard, you return it to your hand. And so it helps create this draw engine. A card from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, Containment Construct. 2 mana 2/1 artifact. Whenever you discard a card, you may play that card until the end of your turn. And then a whole bunch of other cards that I'm not going to make James type up here. But, Lion's Eye Diamond, Artificer's Intuition, all this stuff. You can create loops. You can dig through your deck pretty well. You can do kind of egg stuff without committing entirely to eggs. So why am I talking about Transplant Theorist? Because this card is more expensive than all the other ones. 2 things. 1, it's an artifact, meaning that all of your tutors that can find some of your other pieces can now find this card to get the engine going off. It also triggers off itself, which is kind of nice. And it's ETB, which is ultimately better than cast. So any of the, when you cast an artifact, create a token, like Psymaster Thopterus, Saheeli, all that.
It says non-token, right? Oh my god.
Yeah, this card looks real bad. You can rip through your entire deck so quickly with this kind of card. And I'm going to regret mentioning it, there was a deck I built called Dregs, which uses this kind of engine and eggs, but also the dredge pieces to just further blitz through your deck. Because put Golgari Grave Troll with this card and get 3 artifacts in play, and you're already through quarter your deck. Then there's the added benefit of pay 2, put a card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. One of the original eggs loops uses Conjurer's Bauble, 1 mana artifact that you tap, sack, draw a card, then you can put a card from your graveyard on bottom of your library. So this is another way that you can actually just set up your loop, or just tuck something into your back into your deck from your graveyard to protect against graveyard hate, or to set up your tutors again, so that you don't have to play elixir of immortality in some of your loops. So yeah.
It reminds me of what's it called? Filigree Stitcher. The pay a blue, tap this, untap something.
Oh, Fate Stitcher.
Fate Stitcher. Sorry, Fate Stitcher from Shards of Alara, which is this like very unassuming, clunky, kind of garbage-looking unearthed creature that you would never think is going to drastically warp a format until all the other pieces come up around
As
it.
soon as you said Fate Stitcher, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I know what it's done.
Sorry, you don't have to pay a blue. That's an important part of it. 'Cause
Yeah.
otherwise, you wouldn't be looping with that Ascendancy or whatever.
Jeskai Ascendancy.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jeskai
Yeah.
Ascendancy. Anyway, so yeah, I get it, theorist.
Yeah, it's combo garbage.
Yeah, combo garbage.
All right, next up, Nelly.
We've got Unctus, Grand Metatect, 1 and 2 blue symbols, so 3 mana for a 2/4 legendary artifact creature, Phyrexian Vidalcan. It has other blue creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes tapped, draw a card, then discard a card. Other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1. And for a Phyrexian blue, until end of turn, target creature you control becomes a blue artifact in addition to its other colors and types. Activate only as a sorcery. It's the Grand Architect that's been completed, right?
Congratulations.
Congratulations! Welcome to the team, right? So I haven't played a Grand Architect deck in a long time, but I have played Grand Architect decks. This one has some extra things going on. Typically, you can't just loot off of Grand Architect, so the combination of pumping the artifact creatures, getting looting instead of getting mana production is a bit less exciting to me, but I mean, maybe wants to hop in alongside the Grand Architects to set in some loops. Does anyone have like an immediate home for this card?
Medium Blue Academy.
Ooh.
I mean, I guess like again, Psy, Master Thopterus,
Yeah,
Saheeli, like
Urza,
yeah,
like the it's really weird because I know where you're coming from, that all 3 of the abilities individually are powerful, but when you take it together, it feels like it's kind of a mess. And you're just like, blue creatures tapping loots. You're like, okay, what decks do I care about looting? My artifact creatures are bigger. You're like, okay, so I want a bunch of artifact creatures, and now a creature can become a blue and an artifact creature to benefit from both the first abilities, but so what? I'm going to play it, but I'm not excited about it.
I guess if you like put it next to Pilly Pala combo, now
I
suddenly
was trying to
you're-
go infinite with this.
Yeah. It seems like maybe it could become a piece of an infinite combo.
Seeker
right?
of Skybreak.
Oh my god, I can't believe you
Okay.
mentioned Pili Pala in
Okay.
2023. Nelson, wake up.
I don't want to. Just let me put my grafted war gear on my Pilly Pala and attack for 3
Oh my god.
or 4.
Are you- sorry, just to clarify, are you attacking me or my Jace Bellerin?
Yeah,
This
obviously.
card may be garbage, or it may turn out to be something. I don't have a spot for it.
Considering the stuff we have in the set, it's a cool enough card to be like, yeah, this exists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your turn, Serge.
All right. Next up, me. Oh, I've got the Bilious Skull Dweller. This is a 1-mana 1/1 Phyrexian insect. It's got Death Touch and it's got Toxic 1. Now, I bet you, especially those of you in the comments who have a tendency to pause the video and comment before watching the whole thing through, you're screaming, why haven't you talked about Toxic yet? Is Toxic viable in Canadian Highlander? How does it work in addition to Infect? I want to poison my opponent out. What can I do? Wheeler. Nelly.
I meant to message Liam, but I forgot. I had a busy day. But I feel like we should get Liam's take on this set.
No need. As the premier poison pilot of the format,
Arlo's like, but
actually, yeah, that's unfair to Arlo.
yeah.
As the person with the most tournament wins with Infect in the format, this this one is close. It's close.
This card has a lot of abilities. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this might be a card that I'll try, but I'm not super excited. Toxic doesn't synergize with pump spells.
No.
And the Infect deck is Infect creatures plus pump spells.
Yeah, it's basically a combo deck,
Yes.
right? Like
Yeah.
you were trying to get your opponent to 10 in one combat or maybe 2.
Yeah.
So the fact that that Toxic always deals a static amount regardless of power and toughness is bad.
That said, having another 1-drop that you can play that can tick away just a little bit, that is still really awkward to block,
Yeah.
is kind of appealing,
Yeah.
just to be able to sleeve up. And maybe that's enough. I'm not entirely convinced. This isn't the one drop from the set that makes me go like awooga,
Yeah,
awooga.
yeah, we'll get there next
But
episode.
yeah, but I'd give it a shot. Maybe it's okay.
Can we at least say for the people wondering about the big question, like, does this set bring your favorite infect deck up a notch in winnability, viability with new toys, or
No.
is it just a bunch of things to play with that you think are ultimately not as good as the cards are already in? Or
Yeah, no, we just need more giant growths.
Yeah.
That's all that deck wants
Yeah,
is more
yeah.
giant growths.
doesn't
Yeah.
need more creatures? Because I remember for a
Well, the
time
creature
the
count is
discussion was
terrible.
that you really wanted some more creatures, and this one seems like good enough.
So to go back a step, just for
Yeah.
people who might not be familiar with the archetype, it is green-blue or green-blue-black is typically how it's played, and it has very few, you're shaking your head bad at me.
It's not. It's Jund.
Oh,
It's Jund?
Jund is the best version of the deck.
Okay, you don't like Blighted Agent?
You don't like
Yeah.
Blighted Agent?
You don't need Blighted Agent when they're dead. When the red cards give it trample.
Right.
Because so many of the red gives you more giant growths, more trample pump spells, and a better infect creature too. Like Blighted Agent's really good.
Oh,
Yeah,
right. You get,
what-
do
what
you get a
creature
first
do you
strike
get
or
in
something?
red?
The
Yeah,
first strike's not better than
Raise-
unblockable, is it?
Razor Swine's a pretty good creature.
Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah. The
What-
unblockable. I mean, sorry, maybe not better than Blighted Agent, but
Sure.
honestly, kind
A
of
fair
comparable
trade, a fair
in what
trade,
it ends
sounds
up
like.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Jund.
Yeah, the trample's huge.
Okay.
Because the biggest weakness is people block your creatures.
Yeah.
How dare they?
Ah, the nerve. So no blue at all. No
You can't-
counter spells. No bounce. No.
Your counter spells are
Unsummons?
also your pump spells now.
Yeah.
You can go Soul Tie, but when I recently built Soul Tie, I was just kind of the entire time clenching my teeth, like, why am I doing this? I'm never gonna play this over Jund.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we covered that. Any closing thoughts, or shall we move on? Right on. Wheeler. Next up.
Shieldred's Edict. 1 and a black for an instant. Choose one. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Each opponent sacrifices a creature token. Each opponent sacrifices a planeswalker. I feel like every time we get an edict, we talk about it, and we end up saying, I don't think it's good. But this time,
Yeah. I think
This-
this one's good. Yeah.
this has several things going for it.
Yes.
One, it's still easy to cast. It kind of hits that Liliana's Triumph of just 1 and a black. Not targeting the opponent is also nice. Sacrificing the planeswalker. I think Triumph also sacked the creature or planeswalker, but the way that it's worded, if they had a creature, they could sack the creature and keep the planeswalker. Whereas this one just says, no, actually, get rid of your Oko or get rid of your Teferi.
Your Ren and 6 or whatever.
yeah.
The early ones, right? Yeah.
Being able to make a lands or a hoof player lose their Merit Lodge when they have Llanowar Elves in play is huge.
The specification between non-token or token is so big. It's so big.
Getting rid of a Boo, this isn't the greatest answer for Minsk and Boo, but depending on what your board's like, you can use this to either get rid of the Minsk and Boo with like that trigger on the stack, which is pretty good for 2 mana. Or if you misplay and they make the token, then you can also have that like question of, well, I can make them sack the token and then untap and use my board to kill off Minsk and Boo. Yeah, it just does a lot. It does it pretty well. I like it. I can't believe it. We have a good edict and we're not getting conned into playing it.
So I play a lot of black spells, and I haven't liked an edict since the last time we were on New Phyrexia, and I played Geth's Edict in a bunch of
Geth's
stuff.
Verdict?
Yes, Verdict. Sorry, yeah, Geth's Verdict.
sack a creature endgame life,
And
right?
they lose a
They
life.
lose-
They
right, pardon
lose
me.
a life. Yeah, it's a burn
I remember there was a
spell.
life swing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one point burn spell. 1 point. 1 point. They lose a life, and they have to sacrifice a creature. You do have to play 2 black spells, but yeah, the game. You know, the card designers have given us several sort of clunky, not super rewarding cards with this type of effect. The other good ones of note in the history of Magic are just like 1 black for both of us sack a
Oh,
creature.
Innocent Blood.
Innocent
Yeah.
Blood. That one's always relevant because it's 1 mana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other one that people play sometimes still in our format, rarely, really super grindy, is Chainer's Edict because it has flashback. But this one, I want to say new best edict. Just being able to sacrifice a creature token.
All right, next up, Nelly.
Vran. Executioner Thane. 1 and a black for a 2/2 legendary Phyrexian vampire. Whenever one or more other creatures you control die, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. This ability triggers only once each turn.
Every aristocrat player is like holding their breath and
Yeah.
then sighing really disappointingly.
That last
They're like,
sentence,
yes,
eh?
yeah.
I feel like it's inevitable that, like, if you play aristocrats, I mean, I'm sure you have an opinion. You may have already made up your mind, and that's fine. I totally respect that if you're not going to bother trying this out. But if I was a regular aristocrats player, I think I would at least grab a copy and find out. But it seems like one of those ones that's going to end up not making the cut.
As the premier aristocrats pilot of the format, or at the very least the person that has most recently won with it, I don't know if I can claim that title.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
having built and played and won an event with this deck recently, once per turn is real bad. Like,
because you tend to wait and go all in.
yeah,
Right?
the reason why that deck is can be so scary is that you don't want to trade with their board, or even take game actions that lead to that happening, and then they draw Blood Artist and you're dead.
Yeah.
This doesn't let you do
Yeah.
that.
Where do we like this
Standard.
at all?
Ooh,
Standard, yeah.
probably in my to sell cart going to Card Kingdom.
Yeah. I was gonna say
my
like
binder.
an aggressive deck. It doesn't do anything, right? It's not pointed well enough to go in there. It doesn't really synergize enough. I was maybe thinking in like a red black, like a red black like a Rakdos.
If it triggered when it died, yeah.
Yeah,
But it doesn't
but
even
it says
have...
other. Yeah,
And it's even one or more. Like, you know,
yeah.
you don't get anything for a big combat
Yeah.
or something.
I love it. Hey, say what you want about one. Oh, wait, no, I got a better way. Hey, the set's called One, but I'm getting disappointed twice.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
Nailed it.
Next up, me. Hey, it's Vraska. Betrayal's Sting. This is a 6-mana legendary planeswalker. Enters with 6 loyalty, but it can also be completed. So 4 black and a Phyrexian mana. So 6 loyalty or 4 loyalty. 0. Draw a card, lose a life, proliferate. -2. Target creature becomes a treasure artifact. With tap and sack it to add a mana of any color. And loses all other card types and abilities. Well, that's kind of cool. And -9. If target player has 9 or fewer poison counters, they get a number of poison counters equal to the difference. Once again, we are talking about this planeswalker because if we didn't, you would ask us about it. This is not playable in Highlander.
Big Black? Are you playing this amount of black control? Now, you've played worse than this. Come on.
Absolutely. No, this is like kind of a strict upgrade on like one of my favorite cards in
Oh
Big
my god!
Oh.
All right,
The
go
5
on.
mana Obnixilis
yeah,
from
yeah.
new
Bob Niska-
Zendikar.
But that one says destroy target creature.
So does this one. It makes them a treasure for only -2 instead of -3. It turns a creature into a treasure surge. It exiles a creature, right? Or it doesn't exile it. It becomes a treasure.
I just realized
The
it doesn't
-2
say until
kills
end of
creatures.
turn.
Oh.
Oh. Yeah. The -2 kills a creature.
Oh god, this might actually be better than Obnixilis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually.
I take it back.
I'm super curious. There is a sort of master of or mistress or whatever, best person at analyzing green-black planeswalkers.
Yeah,
I'm super
Allison
curious
for the Rock. Yeah,
if
what her
Allison
take is.
would want to play it in green-black Super Friends. I'm really not sure, but she did play Obnixilis for quite a while, or maybe still does. And this one's very similar, right?
She doesn't play it as the person that has most recently died to Allison in the finals of a tournament.
Okay.
She is not playing Obnixilis anymore.
All right, that's
and
fair.
she's not even playing the 5-mana Vraska. Or the 6.
Oh, that was like her favorite card for the
Yeah.
longest time. The Return to Ravnica Vraska.
Yeah.
That was like one of the cards you could always expect out of her deck, but she's cut that one.
Yeah. I don't know. Proliferate's kind of fun.
I like
Yeah.
the first ability a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see her playing this just because the Proliferate could like get Sorin Markov to ultimate quicker.
Does it do some weird stuff with math on any of the like pernicious deeds? Is there anything like that cares about counters? You know what I mean?
Get your
right?
ratchet
Because
My
bomb up.
Ratchet Bomb.
Yeah.
that deck plays some weird removal sweepers, right? And I do wonder if the proliferate makes that math kind
That
of
Ratchet
funky.
Bomb land is probably supposed to be in more of my decks
Oh,
than it is.
Blast Zone?
Yeah, you can put an extra counter at
that's a
Blast
good
Zone. Those
one.
counters are expensive.
Yeah.
All right, so specifically if you're playing Big Black and or the Rock, a consideration.
Or,
Otherwise,
or is there any like mana production card that cares about counters?
Oh. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Proliferate. We've figured out why you're bad.
let's move on. Wheeler. Oh, welcome to Red.
A cacophony scam.
You got me.
Yeah. 1 mana for a 1/1 Phyrexian Goblin Warrior. Whenever a Cacophony Scamp deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. If you do, proliferate. When Cacophony Scamp dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. I'm not saying you should have Goblin Arsonist and Fireblade Charger in your Goblin decks, but people still do it. And there are still diehards out there that jam mono red goblins, which is fine. Like, honestly, if you are on a budget build of goblins and you're in mono red and you're playing those cards, then I'd probably say play this.
Yeah.
If you're going beyond mono red and we're in like a more standard like red black list, I don't think you have room for this card. And I'm not playing it in Warriors, and I'm not playing it in Phyrexian Tribal.
Hold on. All right.
Just checking off all the boxes.
Yeah, good evaluation. All right, next up, Nelly.
Furnace Punisher. 2 and a red for a 3/3 Phyrexian Warrior with Menace. Oh gosh. 3/3 Menace for 3.
Yep.
At the beginning of each player's upkeep, Furnace Punisher deals 2 damage to that player unless they control 2 or more basic lands. Okay. This isn't as terrifying as that dinosaur.
Ferocidon?
Yeah, Ferocidon. You know, I saw a 3 mana 3/3 Menace and I've just
Started sweating.
lost so many games.
The hint
Just
there
so
is
many.
uncommon instead of rare.
Sure, yeah, fair enough. This card I still think is, I don't know, potentially solid in red deck wins, or if you want in the medium red, like let's do it.
Ancient Tomb
Ancient
mana.
Tomb mana right here. You know, it's hard to have 2 or more basic lands in play on turn 1,
Yeah.
right?
Or your upkeep of turn 2.
Yeah, or even your upkeep of turn 2. Yeah, exactly. The stat line is obviously very nice, and the ability is very good. It's got some evasion. It's got high power. Go for it. Yeah, this might be one of the 5. Is it one of the 5?
This isn't.
Is this the up to 7?
This is one of the cards where I had to go like up to 7 because I was a little low on this initially. Then I was thinking about it more, and I'm like, yeah, this will just kill people.
Yeah.
People
Yeah,
are so like their
absolutely
mana
kill
bases
people.
are
Yeah.
so many triomes running around now. So this
Mm.
just punishes those pretty well.
All right, next up. Gleeful Demolition is a 1 mana sorcery. Destroy target artifact. If you control that artifact, create 3 1/1 red Phyrexian Goblin creature tokens. So we've got a better version of Kuldotha Rebirth. Remember when that was a standard deck?
I
I
remember.
remember.
So Kuldotha Rebirth, you could only sack your own artifact to get 3 goblin tokens. And this one lets you destroy them. So it slices and it dices. I don't know if it's playable, though.
They made Kuldotha Rebirth strictly way better, and
Yeah.
no one cares.
Yeah. Goblins probably doesn't care. And that's probably the only deck that would even
I don't know,
consider it.
Yeah, I
Just play
wish
Chin Street Hooligan. Like Goblins does not struggle when it comes to destroying artifacts,
No.
right?
it could potentially get into like Blue Moon or Grixis control, where you have like funny situations where you're willing to blow up your mana rock for goblins,
Yeah,
but you're
destroy
playing
your mocks.
but you're playing a good removal spell. But it's just like, there's so way better ways to blow up just artifacts that those decks already play.
Yeah.
3/1/1s is not an 8/8.
No, it really
No,
isn't.
it is not.
Yeah, but because I'm sort of emotional because I really liked Kuldotha Rebirth, and I like these goblins in the picture. I want to get those tokens, but this card's not a.
You turned into one of these.
I did, yeah. And it's my token from PCP. Yeah. By the way, Serge, great performance on
Yeah.
Punch
Oh,
Counterpunch.
thank you. My first ever cameo.
Yeah. Yeah. R.I.P. this card. I wish it was just a little better, I guess.
All right, next up, Wheeler.
Koth, Fire of Resistance. 2 and 2 red for loyalty, excuse me. +2, search your library for a basic mountain card, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle. -3, Koth deals damage to target creature equal to the number of mountains you control. And -7, you get an emblem with whenever a mountain enters the battlefield under your control, this emblem deals 4 damage to any target. I'd like to go on record saying I like this card.
Okay.
I'd also like to go on record saying this card is not very good.
I am so with you for
Yeah.
both of those statements.
Is Koth the only planeswalker that's never left his home plane?
Poor Koth. It's like, Koth, dude, it's time to move out.
It's
all
always
right?
so busy in Mirrodin.
Yeah.
There's always so much calamity to face.
Did he show up to War of the Spark?
I don't think
no,
so.
he was a little busy with all the Phyrexians.
Oh, right.
I mean, on one hand, look at how they massacred my boy, Koth of the
Yeah,
Hammer,
Koth
like
of
a
the Hammer.
perfect planeswalker.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I'm glad they didn't kill him off.
Yeah, he didn't get completed. He's still fighting. He's still Koth. He's doing Koth things.
Yeah.
This kind of feels like the middle era where remember there was those 4-mana Chandras that weren't quite good enough until we got to Kaladesh.
I remember.
You know? yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, hey, look, another bad Chandra. And
Yeah, they kept giving us
Yeah.
a new bad Chandra. every
Like,
You're
year.
not playing Pyromaster?
you know what all of those Chandras had in common? All the ones that made elementals. You're just like, oh, I mean, the 6-mana elemental one was kind of okay. Like, that killed people.
Yeah.
But most of the other ones, you're like, oh.
I could see this maybe showing up. I don't know if it's correct, but I could see it showing up in, Big Red.
Yeah.
Definitely not correct, but it could show up there.
Yeah.
Or like just a straightforward red-green Valakut deck.
Okay.
Like a red-green Scape Shift kind of deck, where it's like, if you get this out ahead of the curve, that's a lot of loyalty.
Yeah, but do you ever want to thin mountains from your deck in Valakut, is my thought.
If
right?
we're just the red-green version,
Right,
I'm
if you
not
don't have
worried.
exactly like 11, like you have to
Yeah.
be really careful never to fetch so you don't die.
Yeah, and like
Okay.
getting this card out on like turn 3 and
Yeah.
having 6 loyalty and drawing a card is like, people will attack this and they will be unable to get it off the table. And then so if it's just like this 4 mana soak up some damage and draw 2 cards and hit your land drops, like for a deck like that where you just want redundancy of 4 drops that'll like further your game
Yeah,
plan.
they'll grind. They'll stay alive and trade
Yeah.
for more than one card.
I mean, you'll play Minsk and Boo and stuff too, but this is like, you just want to go like rampant growth on 2 into this,
right.
into like a 4-drop planeswalker, and this fills that role.
Cool.
I will say, kudos, Wizards. This is what starting 4 loyalty +2 immediately up to 6 can look like, and no one is gonna lose their mind about it.
I don't know.
And look, he's even got like pecs to rival Oko's abs.
Stupid sexy Koth. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Nelly.
Mirex. I actually really like this land. It's a land with the sphere type, which is new and does one thing on another card that I don't think we're going to talk about. But anyways, it's a sphere.
Has one limited payoff. Yeah,
Right.
We don't care. Yeah.
Anyways, it's a sphere. Tap, add a colorless mana. Also, tap, add 1 mana of any color. Activate only if Mirex entered the battlefield this turn. So similar to the Eldrazi land we got on Oath of the Gatewatch. The first turn it's in play, it fixes your land for any color. But then it also has 3 and tap. Create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact token creature with Toxa 1, and this can't block. I don't know. The chumps that it poops out can't block, but I really like lands that make creature tokens. There's not a ton of them. Just the ability to keep putting bodies on the table, kind of like that White Bitter Blossom we saw earlier, or any Bitter Blossom. And it like barely any, like this doesn't even come into play tapped.
Yeah, the cost of inclusion's super low.
The cost
the
of inclusion's so
Yep.
low that
pretty huge payoff.
yeah. So I think this thing in like probably the best place for it would be like a white-blue control. I don't know if that deck is still a thing. It should be, I would imagine, but it's hard to figure out how to.
Hold on. Did you say white-blue control?
Yeah, I love cards like this in decks that play Wraths.
Okay, you know what? My
ahead.
initial
Go
thought was I clearly misheard you.
Okay.
But-
no, I really
but-
think that.
But I'm starting to warm up.
Okay.
Yeah,
Or where,
yeah.
are you
Where are you
imagining
putting
play?
it, Wheeler?
We
Yeah.
all have places for this deck because the cost of inclusion is so low.
I mean, just like a deck that wants to make more artifact creatures.
Oh,
to
yeah, I definitely put it in
potentially
that
hold
deck,
equipment
too.
That you
Yeah.
have too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd play this in like my workshop Winnie deck.
But I do like
Well,
that you went to Urza's factory.
That's the one.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
part that
Yeah,
stuck
I
in my mind. Or the Urza's Factory. So you know, like the one of the
God,
only
that's so
other
expensive.
cards
So there
that makes
are,
bodies.
There are 2 lands, and one of them isn't even a land. There's the White Castle from
Ardenvale.
Right.
Yeah.
Arden-
Castle Ardenvale's really
yeah.
good. They're 1/1s with lifelink, which is huge. No?
Just the
No,
once.
that's the enchantment you're thinking of.
And
that
I'm thinking
turns
the
into a
enchantment,
land.
the vampire one.
There's also just the original one from Alliances, right?
Keldor and Outpost.
Keldor and Outpost,
The one
yeah.
that, what about the one that makes the 0/1
Oh
Kobold
yeah,
of Curl
Kobolds
Keep,
of Care
right?
Keep, yeah. Honestly, I low-key love all of these cards.
Yeah.
The first season I was ever playing competitive Magic, like my first tournament in Constructed, Force of Will and Keldor and Outpost were like the good deck.
Mm.
I was playing like Limdul's Paladin, Stone Rain or something.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't good. But anyways, yeah, there'll be some best places for this, but lots of decks can play it.
Next up, me. We've got the Mycosynth Gardens. Another sphere. Tap to add a colorless. 1 and tap, filter into 1 mana of any color. And X and tap, and the Gardens becomes a copy of target non-artifact creature you control with mana value X. Cool?
So cool.
Yeah. I mean, how many decks have artifacts that are good? Like, I don't know.
I hope
Great
that cough got
evaluation,
picked up on the
Serge.
camera or the mic.
Yeah. James is laughing at me off camera.
They made Sculpting Steel on Unknown Shores.
I mean, that's yeah.
this is one of the 5, right?
Well, without the ETB, no.
No,
Oh,
it
really?
doesn't have an ETB.
I know you have to pay for it,
This
but it's
is-
on a land. I really like it.
This is like 11 for me.
Yeah.
Right, okay, you don't.
It's
love
got
it, but
it's got
good.
utility, but like it's so slow. And most of the time, if it's a really powerful artifact that's good, I don't know, like you're not playing Sculpting Steel in 2023. Are you, Nelly?
I mean, I'm playing Phyrexia Metamorph.
Wake me up.
Yeah. Well, you're playing Metamorph because of initiative creatures.
The one... No, I'm playing Metamorph because of like Kappa Cannoneer and Goblin
Oh, I
Welder.
mean, that's fair. Yeah.
One thing I will say about this card is that unlike some of the other cards we've talked about, this has the potential to show up in like a top 10 deck in the
Oh,
format.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's just such a competitive slot because all those artifact decks also tend to run very few lands. But like for Paradox Academy, you could probably get away with this because who cares? Your mana is just free real estate.
That's the only actual place that I was planning to put it, but
Yeah.
I just think it's a really exciting include for that deck.
What are you copying? Like, are you enjoying the flexibility that this can turn into a mana rock and accelerate you, or are you hoping to like copy a combo piece, or I guess both, and that's why it's exciting because it does give you that flexibility?
Yeah, it's game dependent, but if you can just copy a 2-rock, then that's like something useful you can do. And then if you can copy one of your combo pieces that isn't legendary, that gives you a backup.
Like the
Yeah.
2 rocks are really awkward though because you have to tap to copy it, and then like if it's a Grim Monolith or something like that, it doesn't untap, right? Like the fact it has to tap to copy does mean those acceleration plays are clunkier.
Well, Soul Ring only costs 1 mana.
Yeah.
You could copy.
Let's point to a good
yeah,
card
it
to
feels.
try to argue that another.
It feels
card's
like
good.
it's an EOT activated to copy something, untap, and then like use that advantage to push.
Yeah.
Like Voltaic Key, just copying it is also kind of nice.
Yeah.
You can copy Time Vault.
I thought of that too.
Except
right?
it taps itself. To
Yeah,
copy
exactly,
and stops
exactly.
being a land.
Yeah.
and- yeah.
Oh.
That doesn't actually work.
Well, no, I'm point still stands. You could copy
Yeah.
it.
Good copy.
You're
Time
not
Vault.
wrong,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Sometimes they're gonna blow up your Time Vault, and that's the problem.
And then you copy it in response, and it still taps.
No, like the play patterns of Time Vault decks.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you do actually end up deciding it's best for you to play your Time
That-
Vault when they're tapped because they have counters, and then
Yeah.
so they get to untap and then they just shatter you
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah. So maybe Time Vault decks will want to play this. Usually Time Vault decks are a lot of colors though.
Oh, hold on. I've got the perfect thing. Hey, let us know in the comments what you'd copy with the gardens. Oh, the interaction.
Oh, I love engagement. We read all the comments.
Even if it makes us sad.
It never makes me sad
No.
because usually they're wrong.
All right, I believe you get the last card, Wheeler. So
I
take us
do.
home.
Welcome to the Seed Core. It's a land, also a sphere. Taps out a colorless mana. Then taps out 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast Phyrexian creature spells. Then has Corrupted. Tap to give target 1/1 creature +2/+1 until end of turn. And you can activate it only if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters. So 2 things. 1, this is like Pendlehaven, but more aggressive. Pendlehaven, legendary land, taps out a green, tap to give a 1/1 creature +1/+2. Pendlehaven only really sees play in Infect. this card will likely only see play in Infect. And so being able to give your Glistener Elf or your Plague Stinger or any of the other garbage 1/1 Infect creatures you have, +2/+1, great. I want that. And getting 3 poison counters is pretty easy. Like usually people will take the first hit,
Yeah.
which will put them at like 5 to 6 poison counters.
Yeah.
Secondly, all of your creatures are Phyrexians. Because there was the huge
there was an errata for
Yeah.
that, wasn't there?
I'm going to regret this because I've gotten away with people not knowing what Plague Engineer can do to my deck now.
Oh no.
But for this one, it does pull that kind of like Cavern of Souls vibe, another thing that deck can play. Where like, yeah, you'll just be able to cast whatever creature you want. There is a downside in that your deck is basically only colored pips outside of like the artifact creatures because it's all 1 mana spells or like red-green pump spells. So I'll try it out. I think it's worth it, but if anything, I'm like cutting a spell to add this land, and I'm treating it more like a spell.
Yeah, if you have a play pattern where everything's been going okay and you did just get the 3rd counter on, but now you can't cast your Noble Hierarch, you're going to be throwing this card across the room, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ripping it up.
Yeah.
I didn't actually know that every single Infect creature has been errated to be Phyrexian.
Yep.
When did that happen?
2018,
Really?
Or
19.
longer ago? Yeah.
They did a big
There's been
update.
Yeah, there's been more than one giant overhaul of creature types.
I think it was like Eldraine era.
Okay, that
Actually,
sounds right.
with like nobles.
That sounds right.
Think yeah.
I'm
Let
not
us know
sure,
in the
though.
comments below.
What
We'll read
year
it.
that was. All right, well, that is going to do it for part 1 right now. I suppose we can do all our closing thoughts on the set and everything after part 2. I was going to be like, so what do you think? But I realized that can be part of our wrap-up. What did you think, people at home? In particular, if there's any cards that you think are worth talking about that we've missed, let us know. We'll take a look at them. Wheeler will tell you if you're wrong or not.
You are, but it's okay.
A reminder that we couldn't do this without you and your support over at the Patreon, over at patreon.com/learningreadyrun. I've been Serge, joined by the wonderful Nelly.
You can pry my sculpting steel from my cold dead hands.
Wheeler.
At least we got the grafted war gear off him.
And we'll see you at part 2 next time. Bye-bye.